So this is a concept that is very appealing to a lot of different people, and it's for good reason. A lot of people see the side of it that you can really become someone brand new. These goals that you've always had, you can start to pursue them just by reinventing yourself. You change careers, you can change the path that you're on, you can become someone brand new. But at the same time, there is a lot of unknown in really the abstract nature of reinventing yourself. It comes with fear. You're becoming someone brand new. So, how can you possibly know what to expect? But at the end of the day, you know deep down, no matter how much fear you come across or how much you feel overwhelmed, you know that if you don't change, if you don't reinvent yourself, you're going to be getting the same results. You're going to be getting the same outcomes and you're just going to be in the same spot. So, I want to tell you a story about my experience in reinventing myself. My hope is that by the end of this video, you realize that if you want continuous growth and you want to actually reach your full potential, your only option is to learn how to reinvent yourself throughout your life. Otherwise, you're going to end up like a lot of people that they reach this plateau of unfulfillment and they just hang out there because they're associated with a prior identity and they just can't let go of what used to be and become someone brand new. So, about 9 years ago, I'm a couple years into my professional career, and I have to face the fact that I have to start all the way back over from square one. But this time, we're young. I'm doing a lot of learning, and I'm trying to apply these lessons that I've learned. But it's tough to balance it all. Now, during this time, I had a couple good things going for me. I had just sold part of my business that I was in with a couple guys, and I made a little bit of money from that. And then I had just finished competing on the world's largest stage in the sport that I was competing in, CrossFit. And now I was at this point where I thought, I want to do something different. I want to stop putting competition and, you know, my sport at the forefront of my focus. And I want to replace that with business goals. Now, I want to do something in business that's very challenging and then brings me fulfillment. At this point, I was ready to go all in, but I just didn't know exactly where to go or what to put my focus in. So, as you can imagine, I'm in this phase of my life where I'm brainstorming what is my next major goal? What's my next business pursuit that I can really dedicate the next however many years to? So during this time, I've got to be working. So I've got to make some money. Now, I did what a lot of people do when they try to reinvent themselves. And I just started to think about the things that I was interested in. So I thought, if I'm interested in this, then I need to go get a job in that field to just get some experience and see if I even like it, and then just go from there. So by doing that, I found myself in this job that I absolutely hated. I was in a terrible relationship. And you could tell that the environment that I was in, it just wasn't one that I was going to thrive in. So I wasn't in the best headspace. I had lost a ton of confidence that I had spent years building. I just really felt like a shell of who I was at one time. I didn't even really know who I was anymore. Now, with those emotions, I developed a lot of resentment and also just a lot of regret in the path that I had chosen. I thought, man, I had messed up somewhere. Not to mention, to make it all the worse, I had about $30,000 saved up from the sale of my business and just through working those years. And I had moved across the country at this time. So a lot of that was drained. A few months later down the road, I would end up losing all of it. A lot of that came with the cost of moving, the cost of rent, in that downtime of getting a job in this new city. So I know some of you can relate. You move to a new city. It takes a little bit to get some traction if you don't already have a job there. And it took me a while to get this job because I knew nobody in this town. I had no connections. And I had to really network my butt off to actually get in the door with some of these people. Finally, when I got this job, it didn't pay much at all. It was less than $30,000 a year. I just continued to try and take action, just look for any and every opportunity that I could. My thought was that, okay, I get this job and I gain some transferable skills that I can take to starting my own business, or maybe if I wanted to work up in that company or some scenario like that, I would be equipped to do that. And then what I learned is that not all jobs are going to give you the transferable skills that you're looking for. Some jobs are just a means to an end, and they are just there to help you get from one step to the other. It was one of those roles that once you're in it for a few weeks, you master it, and it's very much check the box type of work. So this is really just the beginning of the story. Ultimately, I spent a couple years of my life in this bad environment where I was never going to thrive. And I knew that if I was going to change my life, if I was going to put my life on a new trajectory, I had to reinvent who I was. I was in a very tough spot, the toughest spot in my life up to this point, actually. And I knew that I needed to do something drastic to make a change in my life, to get back on track to who it is that I actually wanted to become. I was in this desperation type of mindset, and I just felt like I had my back against the wall, and I was willing to do anything. And I mean, absolutely anything to get myself in the right environment. I get this underdog mentality and I start to think, well, what do I have to lose? So one night, I'm sitting home and I just decide I don't care if I'm homeless. I'm going to live the life that I want. I'm going to pursue the goals that I've always wanted to achieve, no matter what it takes. But I know the first thing that I have to do is place myself in the right environment. So I made a move. I mean, a literal move. I moved across the country to the city that I'd always wanted to live in. And at the time, I did not have any money. So I had to take out a loan to actually get the rental trailer, to pay for the moving expenses, and then to pay for a few months of living when I got to this new city. I know a lot of you are probably thinking, well, that was dumb. Why would you take out any money to do that? But I want you to step back for a second and remember the headspace that I was in. I was willing to do anything possible to get out of that scenario that I was in to place myself in a more favorable scenario. If you watched any of my other videos, you know that this channel, this content, it's about those that are willing to take a chance on themselves. It's for the people that actually believe that if I bet on myself, I know that I'll make it. So anyway, back to it. So I commit to moving and I commit to changing my life in a brand new location and an opportunity to thrive. And the day that I decided to move was my very last day at work, my only obligation at this old city that I'm at. So as soon as I'm off work, I pick up the rental trailer and I'm out. I drive all night and I drive through thunderstorms, horrible weather, you name it. But I finally made it just to find out that there was a leak in the trailer and all of my stuff was soaked. But it didn't even bother me because I had this idea that there were just limitless possibilities of what was about to happen in my life. So I want to break real quick for a second and just reiterate that moving to a new place isn't going to solve your problems. But what this is representative of is changing your environment. It's your environment that is possibly limiting your progress. This can be an array of different things. It can be a toxic relationship that you're in with a negative person. It can be a family member with a fixed mindset telling you that you're not capable of doing something like that or that it's just too big of a goal for you to achieve. It can be a bad living situation where you can't get any sleep, you're high stress, you have no peace. It can really be a combination of all these factors. But what I want you to take out of this part is that if you can change your environment, you can change your outlook. If you can change your outlook, you can change your results. So let's get back to it. So I just arrived at this new city and I didn't have a job. So I knew that I needed to get some income extremely fast if I was going to make it here. Now, of course, I had been applying for at least 6 months to get a job here. It was very hard at the time to even get an interview because I didn't live there. So upon arrival, I am just scouring the internet for jobs that might fit what I want to get into. I had reached out to people that I thought maybe had a connection with somebody here. Pretty much no luck the entire time. And I was applying for anything, a sales job here, commission only, a part-time job here, you name it, I was applying for it. And after about a month of doing this, I finally got a job for the 3 a.m. shift at Whole Foods stocking groceries. Now, this is pretty humbling for a guy who had just owned a business, has a degree in finance, has worked with C-level executives, professional athletes, and so many other high performers across the country just a short time before. But I knew that I left all that because I knew there was something else in me that I needed to discover. I knew that I had more potential that I was never going to reach in the situation that I was in. Now, as you can imagine, this job, it didn't pay anything at all. Now, I was just making over $1,000 a month, and that included a ton of overtime. So that went straight to my cost of living, and I had a pretty low overhead lifestyle at the time. It was just my phone, the rent, My truck was paid off, so I just had truck insurance and really food. But a lot of the food that I got came from the store with stuff that they were either going to throw out or stuff that they just gave me. But you get the idea. Things were not lucrative, if that's the word that you'd like to use. And I wasn't even breaking even because this was a 30-mile round trip. Just to get to the job, I was actually losing money. But remember, sometimes a job is just a stepping stone. It's not necessarily something concrete that you have to thrive in at all times. I knew that I had to get back on my feet. I knew that I needed some other type of opportunity, and this was just getting me by. So in my free time, I would just continue applying and applying and applying to any and every job that I thought I could do. Now, I know it sounds like I was just had my head down and I was just constantly working, but this was starting to take a toll on me mentally. I got to this point where I was just so ashamed that I had to start over from square one. I thought that I was a failure. And there were times where I thought, I'm never going to be what I was supposed to be because I've taken a one wrong turn and now my life is screwed. But with those negative thoughts, I continued to practice mentally positive self talk and visualizing what the whole mission was, is to reinvent myself. It was to become this brand new person. I was stressed constantly. And I remember being so tired and so drained. I'm sitting in the dairy on a carton of milk and I am just smoked. And I get this voice in my head that is just inspiring me to keep my head up and keep going. And I get up and I tell myself, someday I'm going to be able to buy my groceries here. Now, keep in mind, this is one of the nicest neighborhoods in the city that I'm living in. So I've got a long way to go if I want to get to that. Then, after about 5 long months of sitting in this job and constantly applying to others, I got a temp agency that called me. They said, "Hey, we have this piano moving company that would like to interview you. Are you interested?" And the first thing I asked, "Well, what's the pay and what are the hours?" So it's a small pay increase up to 12.50 an hour now, and I'm helping the owner of the company do a lot of the managerial tasks. So I thought, okay, what the hell, I can do this. The hours are normal hours. I'm not having to get up at 2 a.m. And maybe I can have some regularity in my life again and maybe get back on the right track. So for a very short time, 3 weeks, I decide, hey, I'm going to work the 3 a.m. shift. I'm going to go to this job from 8 to 5. And hopefully, I'll be able to create enough income that I can, that I can at least start to get by. But it was at this time that I had to make a choice. So I want to stop the story right here and I want to talk about this choice that I had to make. So anytime you go through the process of reinventing yourself, there's going to be a period where you have to stop and you have to assess what things are actually stopping you from getting to who it is you want to become, this new reinvented version of yourself. Once you cut those things, you have to replace them with things that are going to get you closer to your goal. So in this case, I had to decide I've got two jobs right now. Okay, I'm not making any money. Do I need to quit this job, reduce my income back to barely making any money in exchange for using that time to apply for more jobs and continue to try to level up in society? Or is my time just better spent staying in this job and then just trying to squeeze out any moment that I have to look for a job? There's really not a right or wrong answer to this, but it really depends on your level of standards for yourself and really the goals that you have that you're trying to accomplish. But ultimately, you're going to reach a bottleneck in your life because something is going to hold you back from getting to the next stage. Something's going to hold you back from progressing. And if you want to reinvent yourself, you're going to have to make some very tough decisions on what to keep and what to cut. So back to the story, I ended up quitting the job at Whole Foods. I knew that if I could use that time from 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. and open myself up and be present to new opportunities, continue looking, that time is going to be better well spent because it'll give me the opportunity to receive whatever it is that comes my way. So I'm working this piano moving job and now I'm making about $1,400 a month, which is still not much given that I'm living in a very high cost of living city. And not to mention my truck, it's about 15 years old at the time. So I'm starting to have all these truck repairs come up and the thing is breaking down. So with my back against the wall, I didn't really have time to think. I just had to keep taking action. And I kept on the search of trying to find a job that actually fit my skill set. And I finally came across this one that was on Indeed and it was for the skill that I had developed for my entire professional career thus far, and it was coaching. It was almost like a sign from God that just hit me like a ton of bricks. So, real quick on this part of the story, the concept that's very important is being open and being present. So, like I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, there's a feeling that comes with reinventing yourself that you're going to want to control everything, every aspect. You're going to want to have a plan. And this is where it gets tough for people that are on this journey of reinventing themselves, is that you're trying to have this plan for something that you have no idea what's coming because you've never been there, and you're trying to become someone that you've never been. So it is normal to want to have a plan, but you have to step back and look at this as, I'm going into the unknown. So I need to be able to act on my feet and be able to make decisions fast. When you try to control so much, what you end up doing is you create resistance. Now, resistance in terms of behavior and psychology, it is a way or a method of trying to protect your vulnerability. We're trying to control things in the unknown because we're vulnerable to failure, and that's very normal. But in reality, you're creating resistance. If you're in this process or you're about to take this process on of reinventing yourself, I want you to push logic aside and look at this from a spiritual perspective. Now, in terms of the spiritual side of things, when people are lost, they pray for guidance, they pray for wisdom, and they pray for signs. Now, if you believe in faith and you can be present enough in the moment to ignore the how you're going to get there, to eliminate creating a plan to get to your goal, and you can just simply replace that with faith that you are going to get there, you're going to start seeing opportunities come up in your life that seem coincidental, but they're anything but that. So I know this was a very heavy part of the story, but this concept of reinventing yourself, it is very testing. It tests how much you can be present and how much control you can release. All right, so let's get back to the story. So when I finally find this job opportunity that is a coach, I know this is my sign. The job description said that this was a brand new apartment complex that was looking for a fitness and wellness director to run a fitness community within the complex. Now, this was a very luxurious apartment complex. So it was made up of a lot of high net worth individuals, as well as a lot of high performers in life. So, from someone that knew how to build a gym business and someone that knew how to build a community of people, I knew this was it. But the most important part of this is that it included a salary of $80,000 a year. I got commission on all of the sales that I would make. And most importantly, it was free rent as long as I worked in this job. So this was it. This was the position that I knew I needed to be in if I was going to elevate my life and change the entire trajectory from this point forward. So I immediately screenshotted this job description because I knew that I had to study this job description to crush my interview that I hadn't even had yet. But I knew that if I visualized enough on this, this would become my reality. So, of course, I applied. A week went by, no response. I didn't have time to think, so I had to continue to act, and I was desperate. So I reached out to the job poster, and of course, no response. In the meantime, almost every single day, I would go to this neighborhood and I would walk the sidewalk and I would walk through this neighborhood and I would visualize myself living here, just feeling what that would be like if I had this role. I could see my account growing. I could literally feel myself ascending in life and going from level to level to level, just bettering myself by being in this environment with high performers that are doing phenomenally well and just placing myself in an environment to thrive. Now, this was before I had anything. I didn't even have an interview at this point, but I needed answers because I was getting extremely low in funds, and if I didn't get this job soon, I wasn't going to be able to pay rent. So finally, I walked up to the apartment complex and I walked in and I asked for the hiring manager. I didn't get the hiring manager, but the marketing director came out and she was confused that I had shown up for this role. I said, "Hey, my name is Nick. I'm here for the fitness and wellness director role. Who do I need to speak to about the position?" She said, "Oh, yeah, we got over 200 applicants in the first couple hours for that thing. We shut it down and we're not exactly sure what we want to do with it." So, like I said earlier, you can't have a plan. You've got to react quick. So I asked her, "Can I have 5 minutes of your time?" And in the 5 minutes, I explained to her why you absolutely need this position. This is the first of its kind. We can build an entire team around this. We can build a business around this. And it's only a matter of time before these other luxury apartment complexes start to do this same model. She said, "You know what? I like the way you think. I think I want to get you in front of the hiring manager. as well as the property manager. So she said, let me get your name down. I'll get you an interview next week and then we'll go from there. A week went by, no response. I sent another email. Another week goes by, no response. So rent is coming up and I need to make a move. So I go back to the apartment complex. I asked for the marketing director this time and she comes out and she said, hey, I remember you. Well, weren't we supposed to set up a meeting? And I said, yes, that's exactly why I'm here. And she said, oh, as a matter of fact, the property manager as well as the hiring manager, they're both here. Would you like to speak with them? Absolutely. Yeah, I do. So I had actually prepared a business plan with financial projections, the whole 9 yards to show them how this would actually work. Needless to say, they were very impressed and I ended up getting this job. More importantly, I could pay my rent the next month. So at this point in the reinvention process, it's about seizing the opportunity. So as you now know, there's so many unknowns that come with reinventing yourself. Above all else, the one thing that has to be dialed in is your awareness. You develop awareness by being present. That means living in the moment. And as tough as it sounds, it's releasing a little bit of control about the how things are going to happen and being open to the faith that things will happen if you stay on the path. And every now and then, just like what happened to me, if you stay present long enough, there's going to be opportunities that come your way. They're going to be presented as signs. When you see that sign, that's when you have to strike. You can't think, you can't try to pre plan it. You have to take advantage of the opportunity and run with it. The reinvention process itself, it's going to test you physically, mentally, and spiritually. But the person that you become on the other side of all this, it's the reinvented version of yourself, completely brand new. So, to close out the story, I stayed in this job for about 2 years and I had worked my way into six-figure earnings pretty quickly. I finally got things back on track and I started thriving in the place that I always knew that I could. But it wasn't an easy road at all. I mean, I straight grinded through those 2 years of being in that job. I got up at about 3:30 a.m. every morning and my day wasn't ending until about 8:30 p.m. But you can tell from where I was coming from, that was a necessity to get to this next point. I didn't really care what I had to go through. I just knew that I never wanted to be in that situation again. And I'll tell you this story about reinventing yourself because the life that you want to live, it's on the other side of discomfort. It's like they always say, sometimes you're going to have to take one step backwards to go 2 steps forward. You may stretch yourself so thin that you're about to break. You might even face humility like you can't even imagine. You may be so broke that you might be facing going homeless. But the man who tries, refuses to quit, and will do absolutely anything to become this new and improved version of themselves will always win. Do what others won't.